please, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have the founder of the Winter Star Party, Tippy, to give us a talk, a 25-year retrospective of the Winter Star Party. So, since we're running a little bit late, we're just going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I'll try to make this as short as possible. Thank you for coming. I do have a disclaimer to make on this. Most everybody knows that the television camera, you're going to see a lot of pictures for 25 years of the Winter Star Party. So you know that the television camera adds 10 to 15 pounds on you. This PowerPoint presentation, you're going to notice that it's going to subtract about 10 or 15 pounds from most of you.
Thank you.
I got a special thanks. I'd like to thank the following people for contributing to this presentation. Tom Clark, myself, Mark Half, Claire Offerman, Charlie Perillo, Ed Punterbold, Bill Starkey, Art Mullis, the Southern Cross Astronomical Society. I'm sure I forgot somebody. But these people all contributed images. These images come from 25 years. In the beginning, it all started at a board meeting, about 1982. We suggested, or it was started by Richard Fagan. It was his idea originally. Richard Fagan and myself and my wife Patty, Skip Jarrett, we were all on the board of fellows for the Southern Cross Astronomical Society. At that time, we thought that it would be a pretty good idea to get a star party going, but we didn't want any competition. I mean, we didn't want to fail. We wanted to make it a success. So we decided we'd have a winter star party. I mean, hell, you don't have to be an astrophysicist to realize that you can get people from Michigan and New York down here in February. So we decided to hold it during the winter months and call it the Winter Star Party. It was a weekend event, just lasted 3 days. We chose February to have it because Christmas was, you know, tied up with everybody with Christmas, and then the same with New Year's. So we decided to hold it around the first new moon in February, and chose particularly Lincoln's birthday because it was never rained on that day. Now, the board members didn't want to do it. They were kind of a little leery and afraid to do it, and my wife and I and Skip and Richard said, well, the hell with it, we're going to do it anyway. I mean, even if you don't want to. And finally they said, okay, you can do it, but just don't embarrass us. They wouldn't give me any money, but they didn't want to be embarrassed. But we went ahead and did it anyway. That was the idea for the Major Star Party, and this was in the story. Now, with permission from the Board of Fellows, the four of us got in my old Dodge van and went looking for a site to hold it. We went down through the Florida Everglades and drove from one end of the Florida Everglades to the end, some 40 miles. We stopped at every single spot that you could stop at along the way to see which would be the best place for a southern sky, because that was an important part of our whole theory, was be able to get where you could see things that they couldn't see from up north. We wanted every advantage to make this a success. So we stopped at every spot. We looked, well, the south is this way. Is that a good view? Yes. Well, we went on. And we selected a place called Mahogany Hammock. Mahogany Hammock was just about 20 miles into the park, about halfway. It was a dark sky site, and Southern Cross observers observed from there before. So it was pretty good. So we decided to do it there. We hadn't had any idea how many astronomers we'd even attract for the darn thing. Next we had to, well, let's see, mosquito. I'm skipping through a lot of this because that was the birth of it. Deciding when was, of course, in the winter time. Now we had to get permission. Now, if you've ever dealt with, this is a national park, dealing with these people was kind of horrendous, but we finally convinced them that it would be a good idea for us to have that star party in the Everglades. But because it's a national park, it's open to the general public. This created a little bit of a problem for us, because during the daytime, if we set up there, we were not allowed to, we were not allowed to camp. So you had to tear down every night. You'd set this stuff up every night, all your equipment, and then tear it down every night, pack it up, and move away so that the general populace could visit there. The other thing was people could drive in there at night with their headlights on. Of course, we did put little roadblocks out there so they couldn't do that. But then, of course, we had to put porta potties out there. We couldn't put anybody refuse entry, but we did it anyway. Now, we couldn't camp there. That gave us just a few options to where to camp. You could either go all the way 20 miles into Flamingo, or back about 20 miles towards the entrance to the park to, I think it's called, was it Big Pine camping area?
Long
Pine or something like that.
Pine Key.
Or go all the way into Homestead or Florida City. So it was a hassle to see the lease, and I don't see how it ever flew. Plus we had to furnish porta potties. Now, with the permission finally in hand, we called Sky and Telescope and Astronomy Magazine. And of course, in those days, you had to give them six months advance notice of an event so they could get it published in time. Now, in the announcement, we listed Richard Fagan's home phone number and his address. At that time, Richard was moving to a new place, and his address and phone number were no longer valid. So I called up, and that's when I more or less took over for Richard and ran it through from there. I put my name in the magazine and our phone number, and we went that way. Now, that was the Everglades. The Everglade years went from 1985 to 1987. The first three WPs were at the 3-day events that were held in the Everglades National Park at Mahogany Hammock. These were the dates that we held the first 3. As best I can remember, I wasn't positive on a lot of this stuff because I can't tell you what I had last week for dinner, so I can't tell you the dates 25 years ago. But early in the morning on February 15th, Skip Jarrett and I set up a card table at the entrance to the park at the visitor center. And the two of us just sit there looking dumb, waiting to see what would happen. We had, as I said, no money to spend for advertisement, tickets. It's a matter of fact, one of the drawing buckets that we have, remember me, those of you that have been here before, remember me shaking up that little metal can? That can's been with us for 25 years. That's the original drawing can. It cost us about $500 out of our own pocket because we had no money to spend. We spent the money out of our own pocket to do it. We didn't know how many we'd have. Much to our surprise, we had a bunch of amateur astronomers showed up and started to register for that thing. Now, I remember the first porta potty delivery. As I had to drive all the way out to the site to get it set up. 2 minutes after we got the first porta potty set up, a Greyhound bus showed up with a bunch of German tourists who immediately got out of the bus, went through the porta potties and filled up. Now that's a weekend event. Getting the porta potties out there, they had to bring them from Miami 75 miles. Because it was only a weekend, we didn't get any servicing. So after 75 Germans walked through that thing, it kind of reached its limit right then and there. So I put a padlock on it and wrote out of order. No moving parts, but it's out of order. This was the site of Mahogany Hammock. In the middle, there's a parking, as you see the cars there, on either side of this roadway. Here, as a matter of fact, that might be my old Dodge van there, and here. It would only hold about 100 people. This was the first one.
That's true.
Skip Jarrett. Tom Clark. Jeff Calder, one in the blue. He's here this year. Our registrars. Jeannie Clark. Also, this was Tom Clark's first telescope. Tom Clark, who some of you may or may not know, Tom Clark is the president, the owner, and retired Tektron Telescopes. He made a good contribution to amateur astronomers because he put a large aperture telescopes at a reasonable price into a lot of our hands, which was a pretty good deal. And he was a fine craftsman. He made pretty good telescopes. But he wasn't always so savvy with telescopes. When he first started in astronomy, he wanted to know what kind of telescope should I get. Somebody said, well, the Coulter, or the Odyssey, the Coulter 13 is a really, really good scope. It's a 13-inch scope. Well, Tom said, by God, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Everybody says the Coulter 13 inches is a good scope. I'm going to order one. So he calls up California, orders a 13-inch scope. Boom. Next thing you know, 2 boxes show up at his house. One with the tube, one with the rocker box. His wife Jeannie says, what the hell is this? Tom, what'd you order? I thought you ordered a 13-inch telescope. He said, I did. She said, well, I got 2 boxes here that were delivered. He said, well, I'll check it out when I get home, because he ran a machine shop at that time. So Tom goes home and he unpacks it. And here's this scope. Much to his surprise, because he was expecting a 13-inch long telescope. He's a little smarter now. Now, in the beginning, I didn't even allow vendors. We didn't have any vendors for the first three winter star parties, because at that time, and I'm not going to say what manufacturers were involved in it, but out at Riverside, a couple of vendors got into a feud with each other, and the first thing you know, one was throwing human excrement down the other one's telescope tube, and I said, well, we're trying to get something started here that's good. We're not going to have that. I don't want a vendor here. I didn't mind asking them for door prizes, but I didn't want them here. So nowadays, we have the vendors here, and I really appreciate it, because they've made it a pretty good success.
They 2 Porta-Johns in the back?
Yep.
Yes, those are the 2 Porta-Johns in the back right there. We only had 2 of them because it was just a weekend. Now, this seemed to be a pretty good success. We wrote up the first one in our club newsletter to Colsack and sent it out to everyone on our mailing list. And we tried to identify a few of the employees, but an otherwise good report. We're looking forward to the next year. The next year, February 7th through the 10th, 1986, it brought us more better porta potties. But that'd be secured during the daytime so as not to kill the wildlife, of course. We're also able to use the facilities at Flamingo Lodge.
Look at that.
There's Alice Newton. Anybody remember Alice when she was like that?
No, is that Alice?
That's Alice Newton, me, and my wife Patty.
Which one are you?
I saw Don laughing, so.
Go get Don's picture.
Laugh no more, my friend. They let us use the Flamingo Lodge let us use their room, a meeting room, for our lectures, so that was pretty good. There's Jack Newton with hair.
Still skinny.
This is the second WSP, held the 7th through the 10th, 1986. While I was giving a talk on collimation, I happened to look out in the audience to discover the birth of the unknown astronomer. The unknown astronomer came to being because when we put out the first publication after the first year, I tried to identify somebody. I said, It was an unknown astronomer from the Gold Coast Club. Well, after that, Tom Clark called me up, raising hell. I'm not from the Gold Coast Club. I was your unknown astronomer that you were talking about. So, came about one of my errors. I was doing quite well with my talk, and then I looked out into the audience, and there's Tom Clark sitting next to Vic Menard. I blew snot out of my nose for about 3 feet. I couldn't, just couldn't handle it. This is the second one.
That's when Flamingo was dark too.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah. Spelt.
The third and last Winter Star Party to be held at the Everglades National Park at Mahogany Hammock took place on this site January 30th through February 1st, 1987. At this time, the popularity of the Winter Star Party got to the point where the participants had to set up out on the approach road coming in. And because I was busy running back and forth from Flamingo, where we were staying, to the site, by the time I got back to the site with my car, I could not get in there to even set up my stuff. I had to park out on the side of the road and just walk around that night and enjoy everybody else's scope. So I realized right then and there, with 100 people packed like sardines, we were going to have to do something different. This is Bob Grant, yes. This is the last one we held at Mahogany Hammock. That was our club's 12-inch. That's one of the first 2 Tektron telescopes made. They're 16 and 20. No, that might have been in Texas, but that was where it debuted. Okay, Patty and I became friends with the proprietors of Flamingo Lodge and had at one time considered the possibility of moving the Star Party to Flamingo. But they couldn't use it there because we could not get enough space. It was, again, a national park and we just couldn't do it. So we decided we'd go down there, check it out and see. We were going to go down into the Keys. We had gone to a function down in a club meeting or something and decided that we'd go down and look at Flamingo. Now, this was in June, too, by the way. This was not, I never was really the brightest light in the harbor. We went to the Everglades in June to check out Flamingo to see how that was. And I had a little dome tent that we had purchased for camping. I had never set it up before, didn't know how to set it up. But we pulled into Flamingo about dark. Oh, the funny thing was, you know, show how stupid I am. At the gate, how much is admission? No admission because the mosquitoes are a little bit bad. We're not charging anybody to come in there. Big deal, man. I saved $5. Let's go. We drove on in. We get to Flamingo and I step on the grass and this black swarm comes up. Mosquitoes like crazy. And now I'm saying, oh, stick A goes to stick B. Finally got the tent up. We crawled inside, and what's inside? I got 10,000 mosquitoes in this tent. We zipped it up, smart as we were. There's a rain fly with a screen in the top. I worked for Eastern Airlines and had a little canister of insect repellent that's used on aircraft. It was very potent stuff. Patty and I stuck our heads to the screens and breathed them through this hole in the top until everybody died, except us. Needless to say, I was bitten so much that my eyes swelled up. It looked like somebody took and beat me about the head and shoulders with a baseball bat.
You look like Elephant Man.
Patty said I look like Elephant Man. The next morning, we go to leave, and we pack the tent up, and all of a sudden Patty said, look at that, what's that shadow in the grass there? Next to where the tent was. I don't know. It moved again, big shadow. I said, better get in the truck. We get in the truck, and as soon as we got in the truck, we were parked up against one of those little concrete policemen that you pull up to. An alligator says, I'm going to cross the road. He went to jump over that concrete stuff to go across the road and skidded past the yellow mark marking the end of the, the middle of the road. And his damn tail was still hanging over that concrete block. So Patty got out and did this. 1, 2, and measured it off. Of course, needless to say that when this guy hit the grass, which was about this tall, he raised up on all fours, raised off the ground about this far, and went about 45 miles an hour and went through that grass. They tell you alligators can't move fast. Don't bet on it.
He was
now,
holding his tail and swimming through the grass.
Patty measured this off X number of steps. Forgot the amount of steps it was, but we measured it off. And when we got into Key Largo, we went to, because we were coming down to the Keys to look for a new spot for the Winter Star Party, we go to a drugstore, get a ruler, measure her flip-flop.
Get Benadryl for your...
And get Benadryl, yeah. The alligator measured over 13.5 feet. This was not going to be a good place for a star party. Okay, now Patty had seen down in the Keys the Boy Scout camp before and convinced me, she says, we should go to the Boy Scout camp and check it out. Well, we did. We came down, checked out the Boy Scout camp. We arrived at the Boy Scout camp, Camp Sawyer, which is, by the way, for those of you who don't know, the camp adjoining this camp here. At that time, we met the manager. His name was Jeff Tipsword. And he had lived right there on the site. We introduced ourselves, and he told us that for me to get that site or to use it, I would have to contact a fellow by the name of Sam Wampler, who is in charge of the Florida Sea Base up in Lower Matacumbe Key. So we were pretty excited about that. Went back to Miami, contacted Sam Wampler. The meetings with Sam Wampler proved fruitful, and we had a sole use agreement on Westmoreland Key, which is east of West, so I don't know why that is.
Yeah, that's right.
But it seemed perfect for our needs. We stayed at the Boy Scout camp from 1988 to 1990. The next 3 years, these are the dates. Now, our failings with what happened with the Boy Scout camp was that we got 300 people. We went from 100 in the Everglades to 300 people here. That was all we could possibly handle. There were inherent difficulties because we had to sign home harmless agreements with the Boy Scouts so that if anything happened to anybody, so we had to have $1 million worth of insurance. And the bathrooms were designed for boys only. It was like a community, those of you that have been to like a YMCA, it's a community bath shower. What we had to do, we had to allow the ladies a certain periods of time during the day, and we put guards there, say ladies only go on in. And, $5 will look good.
Yeah, right.
And it only had cold water.
Shipped in from the Antarctica.
We did our best to get. I gave the Boy Scouts $2,000 out of my fund that we had, because by then we started making some money. But they never did put in the hot water tanks. The hot water heaters. I don't know why they call it a hot water heater. It's a cold water heater, really. Let's see. We posted the guards around. Okay, all in the beginning was very great. We were very happy. The event sold out within a month of the announcement and has continued to sell out every year since. People come from far and wide to attend this Winter Star Party. Here's a nighttime view from the berm. And at Camp Sawyer, there was only a limited space for motorhomes. It only had about room for about 6 or so. Here's a panoramic view of the site. This is, okay, there's Don. Remember that one? No. That's Tom Dobbin Springfield. I can assure you don't want to get a speeding ticket down here. They're not amused with speeders, and I can attest for that. We discovered he had the Springfield Mountain. That's the one we tried to collimate. It took 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We discovered that the room we held the lectures in was too hot. We decided to install some ceiling fans for next year, and I talked about $2,000 we donated to the Boy Scouts for the hot water, which they never did. But this is the Boy Scout facility. As my 10-inch that I had at that time. Now, here's where we ran into some problem. Sam Wampler, his main thing that he liked to do was run the tarpon tournament. He didn't really pay too much attention to anything except the tarpon tournament. And while we were here at this site, there was a couple of his friends that stored ultralight aircraft. And they decided that they want to come down and take off the landings from the site with all the telescopes on the field. And I said, no, we're not going to do that because I have a hold harmless agreement with the Boy Scouts and I have sole rights to this property. I had exclusive rights for this Winter Star Party, and I refused to let them on there to fly their planes off. So they went to Sam Wampler and pissed a big hissy fit and said, well, you know, they're not even Boy Scouts, and they've got the property, and we want to do that, and we want to bring the boys in and have a campfire and all that. And so I joined the Boy Scouts. Patty and I both joined Boy Scouts, and then I'm a card-carrying Girl Scout, by the way, for the same reason, because now I can rent this property because I'm a Girl Scout, and I'm a Boy Scout. But they refused. They complained to Sam Wampler, and all in an event, we had reached the capacity of the site. The bat scope.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Knowlton. There's my old. There's my 18. There's my 18-inch.
You still got it?
No, as a matter of fact, the 18. I'm sorry to say, I sold to Dr. Mike Reynolds. That was a great scope. Everybody that's ever sees that scope knows that scope. It's in good hands. I sold it for my son, Mike.
Still have it, Mike?
I still have it.
Put me at first in line.
With the 5th and 6th WSPs now under our belts and the Winter Star Party growing in popularity, we were desperately needing more room. So I decided to try to get the Girl Scouts. Approached the Girl Scouts and were fortunate enough to get a commitment from the Girl Scouts that we could have both properties. There was a connecting gate between the two. We could have both properties. So we're selling tickets like hotcakes because now we figured that we got 300 for that side, whatever this side would hold. We only had, of course, it was the first year, we only had 600 people to begin with. But 2 weeks before the event, Sam Wampler called up and said, I've changed my mind, you can't have the Boy Scout camp. He got in a snip because I went over his head, because first he said he didn't want to be bothered with telling scout leaders that they couldn't bring their troops in when they were here, and his friends couldn't fly the light aircraft out of here and all that. So he decided he wasn't going to do it. He didn't want to be bothered. He didn't want the hassle. So he severed the ties with us. I never pursued going back to him because I can tell you logistic problems we'd have that were just too much. So we ended up with just a Girl Scout camp, and we have been very successful in having this Star Party here. We've sold it out every year. We've been here for, this is our 19th year at this Star Party. The Boy Scouts, I donate to the Girl Scouts now. The Girl Scout years, Camp Wasumke. We're moving forward. Okay, I just told you about what happened. Westmoreland Key, 91, from 1991 to the present day. We always tried to make the WSP a little bit different, a little bit changes. Now, I forgot to tell you, during the first 3 years, and during the 3 years that we were at the Boy Scout camp, we had a unique way of giving away door prizes. Because we didn't really have that many door prizes. We maybe had 15, 20, 25 door prizes. So we used to stop the star party at midnight, in the dark. Don Parker would be running around with a flash, taking pictures of people. We would say, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "Yeah, you'll laugh when you see it on this cover of Astronomy magazine, you know."
Like that ever happened.
But we did. We'd stop it under red light. We'd have some red lights, lanterns all around us, and we'd have our door prize drawings and give away right then and there at midnight. Of course, when we moved over here, we had these beautiful facilities. When we first got to the Girl Scout camp, we had the building down at the other end, which was before the hurricane got it. We had a kitchen and a dining room upstairs. We had food court, meals served up there. We had a vendor area down there. It was really, really slick. Now, as some of you have noticed, the seeing here is exceptional. Now, Bill Williams, the first time he came down here into the Girl Scout camp, he set up at a prime spot at low tide. Now, when he returned later, he found his battery and everything else underwater when the tide came in. And as you can see, Bill learned a lot about how the tides work, and he found a more suitable location a lot further inland. That's Bill Williams. But there's one of Bill Williams' first shots. From this was film shot, taken and developed on the property. Dave Radin. Note the block under there to compensate for the altitude adjustment from where he came from. This was the Valley of the Dobbs.
You're joking. You still got that trail. Unbelievable.
Cigar in my hand. Wonder where that came from. We had, well, the Girl Scout had more room for motorhomes until one year Tom Clark showed up with this one, the size of a house. That was a really unique scope.
That was the worst scene, right? What's his name from Texas?
Yeah. He was from Texas. I can't remember his name.
Bones, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Clyde Bones?
Clyde Bones.
He came up to cellophane with that thing.
Yeah. I think Richard Berry was the editor. I think he was the editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine back then.
Gay Astronomical Society. Yes. Thanks, Tippy.
That's Fiorella and the twins.
All right, yeah, there you go.
Okay, Hurricane Georges. September the 25th, 1998, a day that go down in infamy. It destroyed the Girl Scout camp. The next 7 Winter Star parties went fine right up until this point, you know, from 1992 up until 1998. It wasn't a good year for the Winter Star Party, as we felt the full We had chickie huts at this end of the field just like they had at the other end. Those huts were all gone. They were completely blown away. These slides here are going to show you the devastation that took place. This is the wheelhouse where we're standing right now, where we're at now. That was the old kitchen area and vendor area. That's the men's bathroom with the roof gone. They're the chickies.
Chickie huts survived pretty good.
No, they were all pretty much destroyed. And
The ones on the east side of the island were gone.
yeah, the ones on the east side are completely gone. And the thing about getting the chickies, this is interesting. That berm, see how deep we recovered our, that was our mascot there. And it finally got unburied. That was our snowman family. But the chickie huts can only be built by Seminole Indians. You can't just go out and build your own chickie hut. So getting them replaced was a hassle, and then they figured they couldn't get the insurance to cover them, so they were never replaced at this end of the field. This is our current registration area. Oh, this here, this is the top of the berm. This is where the Valley of the Dobbs is. This was filled in. The road is underneath this. We had, I don't know if I have pictures of it or not, but there's where our registration is there. We had the building, we dug out the bicycle. These are the huge trees that fell down on the caretaker's property.
There's a table on there.
There's a table that we found. We turned the tables upside down before the storm so as not to act as wind sails. And I happened to be walking down the road and saw a shiny thing and said, wonder what that is. And we ended up digging out and found 3 of the picnic tables completely buried.
Yep.
This place was surrounded by 40-foot tall Australian pine trees all along the road. The hurricane took all those down, and they wouldn't replace them with those because they're not indigenous to this area. So as you can see, some of these trees are pretty big, completely covered. That's the entrance road coming in. This is the berm. It's completely level across the field. Hurricane George did us in. Pretty good, big time. As a matter of fact, the Winter Star Party was not held on this site that year. We held it to maintain continuity. We did it at Chiefland.
What's that? That was a chicken.
But this place, all the beautiful, we had trees. There's Tim. That's where the registration area is now. Okay, the rebuilding. Unfortunately for the Girl Scouts, this hurricane wiped them out, but the insurance company wouldn't pay for it because of the storm surge that came through here. Most of the damage was done by storm water and flood, and they didn't have flood insurance. They can't get flood insurance here. So when we first started here, we used to have the power company would come in and take the lights out at night. They had to take out the sensors and then put them back at the end of the week. So we installed new street light switches. We installed underground services because we used to have to run cords back and forth across the roads. We upgraded the electric service. We installed additional outlets. Installed new circuit breakers, ground fault protection, and replaced over 400 trees we planted. The Southern Cross Astronomical Society and the Winter Star Party donated $5,000 to the Girl Scouts to upgrade the electric and everything. Plus, I started what was known as, some of you remember, the Camp Wassumpke Hurricane Relief Fund. If you donated $50, I'd give you a t-shirt that said I donated to the Hurricane Relief Fund. We raised another $6,000 for the Girl Scouts doing that. And as I said, we weren't able to get the site back up in time for the Winter Star Party, so we held it to maintain the continuity of the event in Chiefland. And we are forever grateful for those who helped bring the site back. As some or most of you are aware, we're still not all the way back, but we're gaining on it. We keep getting hit. We returned to the Girl Scout site for our 16th event, which was held on February the 7th, through the 13th, 2000. The next 3 years were rebuilding events. And these rebuilding events brought many new innovations to the Winter Star Party. Everything from simple binocular holders to more complex gas grills. We also had some new telescope designs. Palomidi. Had one that we call a special modifications by Don Parker. And here we have the gathering of the fire pit. Each year the Friday festivities include music, talent awards, door prize giveaway of thousands of dollars worth of door prizes donated by participating vendors and private individuals. We thank them all. Here's the door prize giveaway. Steve O'Meara.
Wow, I know that, right?
Yeah. Now some people just do about anything, including stand on their heads to get to the Winter Star Party. Here Peter Saravallo demonstrates the proper way of viewing directly overhead when the entire telescope mount doesn't arrive with the rest of the equipment. The center pier never showed up. So, you know, and I'm always forgetting to bring stuff, so even if you know, it's a good idea to get a checklist or something like that. This is the front entrance before the Star Party. This is what it looks like when they're getting ready to come in. Notice the police presence that we provide to give you added security. They lined up clear to the bridges. There's the yard scope. Vic and I setting up the fine-tuning the collimation on my 18, you know, because the weather here is rather idyllic. But going from the heat of the day to the cool evening sometimes causes, you know, little tube currents that you have to be careful of.
That's great.
Valley of the Dobbs. Here's an aerial view of the Winter Star Party site at Camp Osemke taken since Hurricane Georges. The site's recovering well. Here's two pictures of Brian Lula. This was a WSP 2003 from when he was down here with his beautifully machined telescope, and that was what happened when he went home too. He made the right choice coming down, didn't he? The Winter Star Party, our 20th celebration, was the 16th through the 21st of 2004. We were getting ready to let them in. There's our first Astro Award presentation. We had a barbecue for our 20th celebration provided by the Winter Star Party. And the sunset brings to close another WSP. The 21st event, here's Nick hooking them up, getting ready for registration. Mickey's Kitchen. It's amazing how this field, when you first open the gates up, it's pretty bare, and within an hour, the city has grown. Uncle Al. This is dinner out on Big Pond Key. Binoculars. Here's Tim's Mean Machine. That's a big scope. And another sunrise brings to close the 2005 Winter Star Party.
Yeah, I remember the nude shot going on with that.
WSP 22nd event, February the 19th to the 23rd, 2006. We get hit again. Twice. Hurricane Katrina as well as Hurricane Wilma. Now, hurricane season peaks on my birthday, September the 10th. This is about the time that your registration forms are going mailed out to let you know of the new event. So you have no idea the strain that puts on Tim and his WSP staff wonder if we're even going to get through it to the site. Hurricane Wilma caused the most damage after Hurricane Georges due to the storm surge that came in first from the ocean side, swarmed over the island, surged into the Gulf, Florida Gulf. Then when the Wilma passed, pushed the tide back, it's backtracked and pushed it back out. It got three times with storm surge. Now, in that regard, Tim and his staff, they've done a yeoman's job of beating almost impossible odds getting this thing up and going between September. I mean, we sweat it out the whole time because we don't know from 1 minute to the next if, in fact, we're going to be able to get it for you. There was 1 year that it was really down to the wire. It's not fun. I had to send back a lot of money on 1999 to people that couldn't make it. We had to refund their monies. Here we were trying now to get the site ready for the next 2006 Star Party. This is the damage caused by that, with Tim and his crew here working. all the grass is grown off the berm, as you can see. So it's growing back. Flotsam and jetsam coming in from everywhere. The septic systems were strained so bad we had to put in above ground septic systems because you just couldn't handle them. I like that black and white image. I decolorized it. Story Musgrave, the astronaut.
Great stuff.
The yard scope. Dawn rises on the final day of WSP 2006. Now we all remember 2007. It was a day that went down in infamy because it had never rained before on
Beer. Yes! Oh yes! Woohoo!
Astronomers panicked. It's the first time in our history that we were rained out on opening day. Even the opening address had to be rescheduled for the following morning, and conditions for setting up were far from ideal. Here's Tim holding his morning briefing. This is some of the water. The field was a mess. Some of our speakers that we had that year were Sue French, Will Tyrion, Richard Smoody, Jerry Labregas, Scott Ireland, Biggins. Those that know Alice know what that is. Jack Studley. And here's part of our youth program. Vendor area, swap meet. What happened? The 24th event, last year, February the 4th through the 10th. The long line again. Start bringing in the big ones. Set them up. Mickey's Kitchen. Our registration. Swamp, Dave Gracie's Swamp. Our registrars, bless their hearts. Our heroes. Our ice cream social. There's Malcolm and Tim. Door prizes. Our kids awards. For the first time in my life, I found myself speechless as I was presented with two prestigious awards at this event. Here I received the 2007 Astronomical League Award from League President Terry Mann. And I also found myself to be, the recipient of an Astro Oscar as well. Here's our grand prize winner last year. And with that, Patty and I We're here with the scheduled event. This marks our 25th year in Paradise. It really doesn't get much better than this, and it's with participants such as yourselves that have made this event the stellar event that it is. As we come to the end of this presentation, Pat and I want to thank you all for coming, making the WSP one of the best ones in the world. And I can still hear Bill's remarks when we went back to the first night. I hope you're not embarrassed, Bill. Goodbye.
Yeah,